your True Adventure host, Bill Burrud.
Hi there, this is Bill Burrud saying, welcome to Adventure. True adventure filmed as it happens throughout our fascinating world. We're going to find out what it's like to live in a land of perpetual ice. And to do so, we'll be visiting the last really primitive area on the North American continent, our 50th state, Alaska. It's the biggest, the coldest, and the wildest state of the Union. It's a land of glaciers, of blizzards, and active volcanoes, with winter temperatures of 60 below. It would be hard to find a less likely place for human settlement. And yet, Eskimos have lived here for thousands of years, developing their own unique ways of surviving in this frozen wilderness. We'll get to know some of these extraordinary people, two of them in particular. And then later on, we'll introduce our own special guest, who'll have some more to tell us about the Eskimos and their way of life. It's a rugged life, as you'll see. So demanding and dangerous that even the everyday existence of these people of the ice deserves to be called a true adventure. This village is engaged in a continuous fight for its life. The enemies are hunger and bitter cold. Right now, the temperature is well below zero. Sheer survival is a full-time job here, but you'd never guess it. There's nothing grim or tense about these people of the ice. Alaskan Eskimos, like their cousins in Greenland and Canada, are far too accustomed to hardship and danger to worry about them. And the Eskimo, well, he's about as generous and good-natured as any person on the face of the earth. Above all, they're resourceful. The modern world has never improved on a dog sled for traveling in the Arctic wilderness. When outsiders come here, they usually find that they have to adopt Eskimo ways just to stay alive. Some of those ways date back to our own Stone Age. But this is no joyride. There's going to be a big village party tomorrow. And this trip's to collect an extra supply of firewood. Some villagers spend most of their time away. This is Abraham. Now, as usual, he's out tending his trap line. Out here, he's completely cut off. In case of emergency, there's no one he can call on. He has to rely on himself, his own skill, his courage and ingenuity. The outside world has had little influence on his way of life, but he adopts modern ideas that fit his environment. Sunglasses are useful against glare. And of course, he carries a rifle. Each trap has to be checked. He may have caught a mink or a fox, or a trap may need resetting, or have become jammed by snow and ice. North of the Arctic Circle, the trapper's life is hard, cold, and lonely. He's approaching another of his traps. It's empty. Another disappointment. And so it goes from one set to the next, keeping up a steady pace, tireless and patient. A welcome change after miles of unbroken snow, animal tracks. The fox that left those tracks should be back this way sometime soon. The tracks lead straight to its underground home. Fox pelts bring in money to buy the few products of modern civilization that the Eskimos have learned to need. The trap goes right into the very mouth of the burrow. A harsh fate is in store for the fox, but this land is harsh. There are only so many ways for a man to survive in it. Abraham's skill as a trapper means a small, added margin of safety for the entire village. A simple law of survival demands that you shoot anything you see that a man can eat. He's bagged a ptarmigan. There's tastier game, but the Arctic's no place to be particular. Nearing the end of the journey, not much to show for it, until now. This was worth waiting for, as fine a red fox as Abraham has ever seen. The trap has to be reset, but he doesn't have to be too cautious. Snow will obliterate his tracks, and soon there'll be no sign anyone was ever here. It's been a long day, and it's getting even colder. But there are always camp chores to be done before a man can settle down for the night. Until he gets a fire going, there's virtually no difference in temperature between indoors and outdoors. Thanks to modern civilization, at least Abraham can light this kindling with an ordinary match. His stove is an old oil drum left behind by the U.S. Army. To an Eskimo, Americans have to be mad to discard anything so obviously valuable. They themselves can't afford to overlook anything that might help in the struggle for survival. There's just one necessity never in short supply: water. All you do is scoop up some snow and melt it. Of course, this assumes that you've got a stove or a lamp to melt it with. The word Eskimo means eaters of raw meats, and the description still applies. But as I mentioned, the Eskimos have been quick to adopt outside ideas and products that fit easily into their established patterns. Basically, though, in spite of imported pots and pans and guns and canned goods, it's still the ancient arts and the extraordinary ruggedness of the people themselves that makes life possible in this hostile world. main course tonight is dried fish. It's a Spartan diet, all right, but a healthy one. Living on meat and fish almost exclusively, they hardly ever suffer from the deficiency diseases that are all too common in civilization. Well, now the day is really over. Time to get ready for bed. Now, ironically, he has to guard against staying too warm. Perspiration could freeze before he wakes up, which would be nothing short of disaster. Apparently, he never runs out of socks. On the other hand, he has to be sure that he doesn't sleep too long, or he might get too cold, which would be just as bad. Even asleep, an Eskimo trapper has to stay alert to survive the rigors of the Arctic climate. Meanwhile, the dog sled team we saw leave the village earlier is on its way back. Tomorrow's a big day. For the people of the ice, every day is filled with drama and true adventure. Early morning. Not much of a day for a potlatch party. But the village is up and about. There are things to be done, mostly concerning food. When hunger's never far away, there's nothing so festive as a really big meal. But the adults aren't the only villagers who have to work. Eskimo children start sharing responsibilities at a tender age. At the opposite end of the lifespan, here is a woman in her 80s. She shares the traditional dislike for becoming a burden on her younger relatives and maintains her independence by running a fishing camp. The skin she's removing helps slow down the rate of freezing in the ice hole. In these Arctic temperatures, water will freeze to a depth of 1.5 inches in only 15 minutes. A short distance away, there's a second hole in the ice. Her fishing nets are strung in a loop between the two holes. You see, in this way, the old lady not only avoids becoming a burden to anyone, she does her share of contributing to the village's survival. All in all, a successful catch, some of which will find its way into the community larder for tonight's festivities. In the village itself, preparations are picking up speed.
Frozen meat is brought down from racks built high out of the reach of the dogs. Here's a cache of fish. The family freezer is as big as all outdoors. One way to divide a frozen fish into bite-sized chunks. This is the new or industrialized way of dividing a fish. Just add a dash of seal oil. You'll never know the difference. The chores are done. It's time for the kids to romp. These children of the ice are raised with a great deal of tenderness and affection. In spite of their early training and responsibility, they know how to enjoy themselves like youngsters everywhere. They have all the emotions our children have. To the Eskimo, hospitality isn't so much a virtue as a habit. Shortages of food have given them a centuries-long tradition of sharing and of staging big feasts with everybody invited whenever the larder is full. Seal oil is the universal sauce, equivalent to everything from ketchup to whipped cream, depending on what you serve it with, of course. A bountiful feast for the Eskimos. No one's left out at a party like this. Here's our old friend, the trapper. Even our true adventure cameraman tells us he had so many invitations to join in, he came close to getting no films at the banquet at all. Bone marrow is considered a delicacy all over the world, among primitives and civilized people alike. As a change from raw meat and frozen fish, how about some fresh frozen blueberries? Served, of course, with a generous topping of seal oil. And so the village celebration goes, usually until there's not a scrap left. But the festivities don't end with the disappearance of the last of the food. There are stories to tell, songs to sing, story dances. The villagers throw themselves into a dance with the same zest that they show at the dinner table. The only native musical instrument is the drum, and a carton does just as well. one dance ends, another starts. Each dancer has a story to tell and tells it in a symbolic dance language familiar to all. The next performer will be the elderly man who provided the music the last time around. He is telling the story of a bear hunt that he took part in many, many years ago. Now the old bear hunter goes back to the drum again. Here's a familiar dance. Moments like this give you a hint of the Eskimo spirit. Living always on the edge of danger, these people enjoy life to the hilt, every minute of it. Almost the only contact that the villagers have with the outside world comes through the annual dog sled races. Winners get to go to the state eliminations at Nome. Old and new come together in these competitions. Heats are run against time using a modern stopwatch. But the combination of human, sled, and dog team goes back a long, long way. No one knows for sure when Eskimos first came to the New World. Later than the Indians, certainly, perhaps 6,000 years ago, perhaps less. Whenever it was, they came and made this hostile land their own. They made tools of bone and flint and antler, snow houses, tents of skins. And today they're sorry for the rest of us who have to live in warmer lands. The people of the ice are a friendly people, eager to adopt new ways, still enjoying the thrill of dog sled racing, always engaged in a struggle with the elements that makes their whole lives a true adventure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet our special guest, a man who really knows all about Eskimo life, Eldon Hutchins. Eldon, it's nice to have you with us in a warmer country. Did you make this picture all by yourself?
No, Bill, I had a partner in it, a very good friend of mine, Glenn Murphy, who lives at Dillingham, Alaska. He's quite an outdoorsman and certainly is well acquainted with the natives because he spends his life with them while I just go up and visit them once in a while to make a film.
Oh, I see. Eldon, I think we'd like to know your personal feelings about meeting the Eskimos and living with them and talking to them. What kind of people are they really?
Well, Bill, I think that my interpretation of them or my feelings is just like anyone else's. They're a very simple people, and after you're around them a while, you begin to realize that they are very common, they're very friendly people. None of them seem to worry, and I'm sure none of them have ulcers.
No tranquilizers north of the Arctic Circle.
Frankly, I don't think they've ever heard of them.
You know, one thing that surprised me, I didn't see any igloos in this picture. Don't they make igloos?
Well, as near as I can tell, there never has been any igloos used up there. I've talked to some very ancient Eskimos who claim that they have never heard of them nor have ever seen them.
Here's a question I'll bet you everybody has always wanted to find out. Did you see any Eskimos with an icebox?
Yes, Bill, I have, numerous ones.
They have refrigeration of their own up there then.
Well, strangely enough, it gets warm enough in the summertime that they can use a little refrigeration.
How about their health conditions? Do they stay pretty healthy?
With the exception of tuberculosis, there's very little disease among the Eskimos. And now that the government have established so many native hospitals, it is being stamped out too.
Well, Eldon, I think after hearing your opinion of the Eskimos' life, I think maybe all of us will want to go up and visit them. I want to thank you for being with us on our program. And of course, I want to thank all of you out there for sharing this true adventure with us. Until we meet once again, this is Bill Burrud saying, may all your adventures be happy ones.
it.